All right, another episode of Chiefs Collective. We got a lot to talk about. There was a preseason game that happened. There's some confusing depth charts, potentially, depending on which position groups you're looking at. Injuries are starting to pile up, and even more. So we're going to get into all that today, right after this. What is up, everybody? My name is Cole, HBTC. I don't even know what you want to call me. I'd make videos and content about the Chiefs, but I'm here with two legends in the space, Nate Taylor of ESPN and Mitchell Schwartz, multi-All-Pro, former Super Bowl champion, right tackle of the Kansas City Chiefs. How are we doing today, gents?
2 days left. That's all I got to say. 2 days left in the camp. Mitch is probably living the best life out of all three of us.
I'm not counting down the days at the end of camp. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, he did 1 day of camp, and that was it. Now that's plenty. So no, man, I'm doing well, and yeah, it's great to have somewhat football out there, right?
Yeah.
What is funny to me is that, like, one of the things I miss, and I know Mitch is different on this, is like, man, I do really miss seeing all my friends being like, "Did you see what happened at that joint practice?" Like they weren't gonna fight, they weren't gonna get a bunch of injuries. What happened? When are we ever gonna do a joint practice? Never doing a joint practice. Okay, cool. Nah, that's a shame. So this is like peak joint practice season, right before everybody gets to do their actual end of the preseason stretch.
Case in point as to why Andy Reid probably doesn't like to do it is there was a huge brawl today between the Cowboys and the Saints at their joint practice. It's starting to make its rounds on social media about an hour ago. So, yeah. Mitch, what are your thoughts on joint practices? Love, hate, don't care?
Definitely hate. I only had one experience doing it, and it was actually like the best experience ever. I can tell that story if you want to start off from the jump. Also, like, Chargers, their center got injured. Who knows how bad that is. The flip side to the no joint practice, a lot of coaches are using that as a preseason game. So from the fan perspective, if you don't like that, we're not doing joint practices, the flip side is we get to see guys playing football games, because a lot of these teams don't do that. All you're seeing is, sideline videos and kind of bad angles and all those things on camera phones. The flip side is, this coming Saturday, we get to see all the guys play real football. So that is one thing to take away from it. No, I think it was my last year in Cleveland. We were slated to go to Buffalo for joint practice. At the time, Buffalo's D-line, Mario Williams, Marcel Darius, Kyle Williams, and Jerry Hughes. And yeah, so that was a pretty brutal offseason, just worrying about that, thinking about that every few days. Man, we got to go to Buffalo and face those monsters. And we take a train, I think, because that was like the best way to get from Cleveland to Buffalo. Our locker room is like basically a bag on the floor inside a basketball stadium, like right next to the practice fields. And they brought in, they were upgraded porta potties, to be fair, but it was like a trailer with upgraded outdoor bathrooms. And the crazy thing is, it was Rex Ryan was the head coach of Buffalo. And so we were on their schedule. And Mike Pettin was our coach, and they had coached together. So that was the friendship, and that was the reason. And they gave us the schedule. And it was like a 2-hour practice, and we were like, that's pretty chill. That's way easier. And the first 30 minutes, and Nate knows this, and if you're around football practice, you know this, typically if guys are going to the field, O-line are out there in some capacity. If it's special teams to start off practice, like the O-line can go out there, going to stretch, warm up. Sometimes the coach has them out early, doing some pre-practice warm up, all that stuff. Well, this schedule was 30 minutes of special teams, no O-line required. So we asked 50 times, because we're so neurotic and we're so used to having to be out there. Like, are you sure not out there? Are you sure not out there? Sure you're not out there? No. So basically, we take the field, we warm up, and we get into one-on-ones, and we get into team. We go into one-on-ones. We're doing one-on-one drive drill, which is run blocking, which is probably the single worst drill for an offensive lineman. And Buffalo, basically, all they're doing is stack and shed. So essentially, the defensive line is just putting their hands on you, pushing you out and trying to shed. So it was not very physical at all. It wasn't like butting heads. It wasn't crazy. There weren't fights. It wasn't super chippy. And then we go to practice. I'm going against Mario Williams. He's a little later in his career. He's not necessarily going the hardest ever. Kyle Williams, I think, was not practicing. Darius might or might not have been practicing. And then Jerry Hughes, I think one of the days Joe Thomas practiced, one of the days Cam Irving practiced, and Jerry was giving it a little bit stronger on the other side. But for 2 days, it was like the most chill experience. But even as chill as it is, I hate joint practices. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want the stress. I don't want like the anxiety. Stay there for the game, because I feel like games you can be more prepared. Like you've got this volume of stuff. Like I'm a preparation guy. I don't like to feel like I don't know what's coming. And I feel like that's an element of joint practices, which is what the coaches are after. Like they're trying to stimulate that, kind of fight or flight, the anxiety. How are you going to, go up against a guy? It's the middle of training camp. You're so used to going up against your own guys. We saw, day 6 of Chiefs and pads, what that ended up looking like with some scuffles. But, from the player perspective, I don't think anyone likes it. If you have a great experience, that's like awesome. But for the most part, I think it's just fights. I'm not gonna say it's not real football, but like it's different and not the most fun. So yeah, I was very glad coming to Kansas City. The Coach Reid did not do that, because I didn't like that. And then playing the preseason, like great, just give me kind of the normal run into a football game. I get used to it. You're simulating going out there, getting in pads, taking the field, the kind of first drive, few plays, the anxiety and the jitters of a normal game. I'm not sure that joint practices simulate that specifically. They simulate some other stuff that is very valuable the coaches like, but the simulation of what it's going to be like in the game, you're not getting that. And then typically you don't play that following game. So that's where I would say there's a little bit less utility from the player perspective.
Yeah, it definitely seems like most teams around the NFL, I believe, do them. Chiefs are one of the few now. But it's kind of because Dave Tobe, when he spoke the other day, he was like, yeah, we're sick of playing against each other. This is getting old. He's almost like, Dave Tobe's funny because he'll just shoot straight. Again, we talked about it on an earlier pod. Even if the story he tells you they have to take down because that story probably shouldn't have been shared, like he'll just shoot straight with you. He doesn't care. He's like, we are so sick of playing each other. But with that being said, they played the Rams over the weekend. There's some takeaways there for sure. I guess either of you, how serious and how much stock do you put into some of these performances, knowing that it is against the Rams 2s, 3s, and 4s, but obviously you're using a lot of your own backups and guys down the depth chart as well in this game?
Yeah, I think for fans, it's an excitement because we haven't seen the team in a long time. You have a bunch of new players, either newcomers or rookies. I get the sense that, like, as I've done this longer now, I can see the big picture of, like, this is an entire stretch. Everything is not a massive conclusion today. No one's made a hero. No one's made a failure. But you want to see, like, the progression of, like, Mitch is already disagreeing with me.
Chiefs social media land. There's some heroes and there's some villains.
Yeah, and I understand that that's the society we live in, and I also want to remind people that, like, it's still quite a bit of ways from week 1, from like the opening game against the Broncos. But honestly, you just want to see, like, do the traits that the team acquired you for, do they actually show up in some capacity against, again, other NFL players, whether they're rookies or, third string, whatever. It was really fun to see the Rams just, like, not care. Like, care, but, like, we do not care. Like, we didn't fly people that matter. We are not trying to, like, really win this game. I mean, I guess we get close, we should win this game. But, I think they spent much of the day worried about, like, okay, Stetson Bennett, and obviously how are we going to see what our quarterbacks do, most notably their first-round pick, which I'm still puzzled by that decision. But for the Chiefs, it's like, okay, well, this is a team that's getting younger, so you need to see the young guys out there more than usual. Some played more than I anticipated. Some played less than so. But you just want to see, like, well, here's why they drafted you. Like, okay, like, is Cyrus Allen a good route runner? Is Emmett Johnson going to run hard and break tackles and be effective in the passing game too, like be a traditional dual threat running back? Can Khalil Benson block somebody, right? Depending on all these weeks of the discussion that we've had about him. And even for young players like Jaden Hicks, like, okay, remind everybody that, like, you are a fully fledged NFL player and these are third stringers or second stringers and or rookies. And so there should be a clear distance between you and the competition.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, to
I
jump
was just
in,
going to say,
like-
where do you want to go with takeaways and how do you want to go about that? Because there's a lot, potentially.
Yeah, so the takeaways to me, I think, are more favorable on the pro side than like negative on the downside. That's just not me like being a homer and rose-colored glasses and all that stuff. But I think for the most part, it's harder to luck into like good play. It's harder to flash really good things, good vision, good breaking tackles, dominance, certain things like our Mason will talk about. It's harder to flash that kind of stuff and like that be lucky that you're just like quick and strong and able to, push to the top of the pocket. What he did in the run game, stuff like that. So I would take that more away than like some downsides. I mean, I'm sure we're going to talk about Woods and the stat sheet. Driscoll didn't have the best game on the O-line. I would say in a general sense, what you would not want from the downside is the operations. So many penalties, just a choppy game. Obviously, we talked about, it's 2s and 3s and guys who are a little bit lower down the depth chart going out there playing football. But it's all guys who have played plenty of football. And they all played in college. Some have played in the NFL. Some have been around the team a while. So you still expect a level of competency, breaking the huddle, getting to the line, not going off sides, all those things. I think that's the biggest downside in terms of what we can really take away, more so than the player performance. But I mean, I feel like the defensive line is a great place to start because you got, a high and you've got a low. And the question becomes like, what do we take away from that? And how excited do we get? How down do we get? So I'll let you guys take it from there.
I thought Peter Woods was relatively okay. I know there's a bunch of reasons behind like, hey, he's dealing with a left ankle injury. So you take that into consideration. I appreciated that he was out there, that he played the full allotment of snaps that they wanted him to play. And he thankfully came out of the game with no, I won't say setback, but like he didn't aggravate the injury further. He did practice, today and yesterday. So that's a good sign. So hopefully that ankle is strengthening as we get further removed from when he first had the injury. But a lot of boot action, a lot of play action, a lot of double teams. He wasn't.
This was just to jump in real quick. That was not the scheme, the offense to go against for like him to shine. So I don't want to make it like, oh, well, he can't still make plays. But like, if you're talking about worst case scenarios for a 3 technique, getting double teamed on every run and having nakeds go against you. So when you do shoot the gap, you just get pinned away from the play. The worst case scenario. And that was 70% of the snaps, something crazy
just
high.
about,
so
yeah,
you can continue, but like, that's a great point that the scheme doesn't really allow a 3 tech to shine the way we'd want to.
Yeah, I think if you were going to try to find the strongest criticism, it's like, hey, could you be a little bit more stout in the run game? But at the same time, I don't know how much of that is about the ankle and how much of that is like the players you're around. Because it's so funny to me, like Peter Woods probably felt a little bit different where it's like, I've been with the ones a lot. So I've either been with Tonga or I've either been with Chris on like certain down and distances in training camp.
Yeah.
Neither one of those guys are out here. And man, come on, run a play towards me. Or, let me get just a traditional drop back. On the flip side, Peter Woods was able to be like, okay, I can play. I know exactly what I need to work on for game 2 against Tampa Bay. Our Mason Thomas is like, all right, well, let's see how you hold up in the run game. And it's like the first couple plays, it's like, hey, that's the NFL. Like, hey, like they're going to run at you. That's one of the big responsibilities of Steve Spagnuolo is obviously holding up, setting the edge, making that running back go off course. And then he started to do that as the game went along. And then you get to third down, which is really going to be his most important down of the season, most likely, based on his role and his skill set. And hey, I know it's not the starters, but to show, as Mitch said earlier, burst, to get fans excited about like, oh, was that a guy running fast in a red jersey? That's cool. Like at the quarterback?
At the quarterback.
Whoa. I don't know what your reaction was, Cole, but it was that was something that like resonated immediately online. It was just like, okay, what they told us about our Mason Thomas is true. It's just a matter of like how much can he replicate it and obviously get better at it over time.
Yeah, I definitely love seeing him flash more than once. It was on both sides too. So I don't know if it was the 3s or when it was by that point, but I know the early one was halftime. I mean, he shot out of a cannon.
Yes.
So that was awesome. That was on quarterback's right side. And then it was on the left side in that goal line play where that was the play Jaden Hicks almost picked that ball off. Couldn't step into the throws, kind of an awkward situation. And and it was a great play too by Hicks, obviously, but that's the type of stuff where we're talking last year with, hey, before the injury even, like George Karlaftis, he's racking up these pressures, but there's not a lot of them that are quick, under 2.5 seconds. I know it was backups, but man, to have somebody potentially be able to get there ASAP was definitely a bright spot for me, and I'm excited to see them continue to build upon that.
He's also technically a backup. Like he is the second string D line, so he's going like against like. So you know,
True.
And if you're theoretically better than that, if you're floating with the ones, if you're 1.5, then we should see flashes and we should see wins and we should see quick pressure. So he showed everything you can see. To your point on Woods, the double teams, I thought that was, I'm not gonna say it's like a great performance or all those things, but very valuable, like great double teams that were had against him. Him trying to figure out what's the best way to go, because early in the game it looked like he was almost trying to split it a little bit, turn the shoulder. He wasn't quite going the knee down. The defensive tackle in Seattle, I think Byron Murphy is like the king of knee down, split, shuck a guy, and kind of ricochet himself into the hole. And then later in the game, Woods was just kind of like trying to go more straight through the B gap and trying to like hold up both of them and just seeing what like pure, I'm going to get off the ball, strength, hunker down, what that can do. So I think he's going to try to figure out, how to attack double teams when he's getting doubled. Chris is a different animal, right? Like it's all speed, and Chris is more long and linear. And so, the turn the shoulder, they kind of shoot through the gap, swim move, jump the snap count legally. That's kind of Chris's way of defeating it. Like he sees it coming and he just gets through the double before they can get shoulder to shoulder. Well, I don't know if that's going to be Woods' game, especially early on. So it is interesting to see coming out of that game what it looks like this week, into the following weeks, how he's going to handle taking on double teams as a 3-tech, because that's going to be his role, the 3-tech on a base defense or a nickel defense, whatever it is. He's not going to be playing the nose. He's going to be playing the 3-tech, kind of Chris's spot. So that's an area for improvement, but an area he saw a lot of reps to kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, how much is the ankle. But I do think there was a huge benefit to seeing 15, 18 double teams, just straight downhill football for that whole half.
Do you have any takeaways, since we're talking defense, on secondary that you found worth talking about? Obviously, Jaden Hicks was a big bright spot to me. He was kind of all over the place, led the team in tackles. I think he had the only tackle for loss, 1 of 2, depending on where you look, pass breakups, with that one being in the end zone. I thought he looked really good. I found this interesting. I went back to some of my preseason takeaways from his rookie year, and this maybe excited me a little bit less, but I'm still hopeful he builds upon that. My takeaways on Jaden Hicks, first preseason game of his rookie year, all over the place, led the team in tackles, and was flying around, just looked like one of the best guys out there in the secondary. So I was like, well, shoot, okay. But I just hope he builds upon that. I don't know. I don't know what's up with him in the pecking order in the safety room or anything. You guys can weigh in on that, but he was definitely a bright spot for me in the secondary.
I still get the sense that he's like squarely the third safety in the depth chart right now. So he will get to play in a rotational basis. Chamari Connor didn't play in the preseason opener because he's dealing with a knee injury. So in a lot of ways, Jaden got more of a burn than he should. Because even Aloy Gilman was out there, I think, into like the second quarter, and I was like, that's right, they don't have any safeties. They only have 3 on the roster. And then they played the young guys. So yes, as I said earlier, you can clearly tell there's a difference between skill set and experience and timing between him and who he was competing against. I think Jaden Kennedy's gonna take a while to come on, the 4th round pick out of Oregon. He seemed to be playing as if, man, this is really fast. I got to make quick decisions. I'm in, space. Again, it's a little bit different when like the offense is designed a certain way to just like point and shoot, quick decisions, rollouts, play action, make things easier on the quarterback, and obviously make it a little bit difficult in terms of moving the secondary around.
Would you say his perfect role is more of like the third DB in the slot and kind of a blitz threat and physical like stuffer?
Yes. Which he really couldn't demonstrate in Saturday's preseason game because the Rams were not sort of playing that way. I think Jeffrey Bassa is a name to watch too, because I think the question for him is, okay, he's clearly got talent, clearly likes to come up and be aggressive in the run game. Where's he going to be in terms of like spacing and understanding concepts in the passing game? And will Steve Spagnuolo trust him as we get further along in the season about being that third, linebacker? Because I still think that player is most likely Jack Cochran. But Jack Cochran is dealing with a knee injury. So we're going to see more of Jeffrey Bassa, I think, the next 2 weeks anyway, because he needs more experience as a second-year player. But overall, I think the defense was fine. Nothing crazy happened. And then on offense, I mean, I think what should jazz Chiefs fans most is that, like, Emmett Johnson can run the football at this level, at least for one game, and Cyrus Allen is the greatest rookie wide receiver I've ever seen in my life.
In your life?
Okay, there's a little bit of sauce
all
on
right,
that.
All right. We're riding the hype train, but I was double checking, but
it's like what qualifiers are coming, because like 2026 post second round receiver. There's got to be something coming here.
No, he's the greatest receiver. He's the answer to all their problems. I don't know what people want me to say other than I don't. If it was up to me, and it's not, I know he's going to play more. I see the way he already works with Mahomes, and I know fans can't see that unless they're at training camp, where I'm just like, cool, keep doing it. But like, it's fun to know that he's good.
Coach Reed gave that up early on. He said he sees football the way Pat sees football, or whatever. Pat has trusted him, something like that.
Yeah,
which is coach speak for he and the quarterback have a connection. You're going to see a lot more of him.
Yes.
That was the biggest takeaway from like the pre-padded practice, that Pat has trust in him, and that's pretty rare for really any first-year receiver, let alone where he was drafted.
Yeah,
well, that's what.
Go ahead, Cole. Sorry.
I was going to say that's one of those things where when you talk, you just think back to other receivers. Like Sky Moore was always like a tick off with Mahomes. It was like so many passes is like almost to his fingertips or almost hauled it in. But now with Cyrus, the reports are, I mean, he's just hauling it in, and it's becoming more of a consistent thing day in and day out. So obviously pretty excited about that. But Mitch, feel free to bounce back off that thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think for receiver especially, there's such a feel component to this offense and the way Pat like sees and feels the game. That's why whenever anyone talks about he and Kelsey, like what's their greatest strength is seeing the game the same way. Like we've seen it now with NFL films that like Travis is supposed to run an out-breaking route, and Pat throws the in-breaking route before Travis has broken it off, because he just knows Travis is seeing and feeling the same thing. He's going to go to the open space. Well, it's kind of hard to play that way with one guy and then just like do it by the book to all the others. Like there's an element of Pat's game that just it's feel, it's anticipation. Yeah. You could go back to, was it last year maybe or 2 years ago, the Bengals game where you get the DB who we don't like, who's talking a lot of smack, and you get him one-on-one on the outside, and let's go take a shot on him, and throws a ball to Xavier. Xavier kind of gets pushed off the red line, doesn't really go up for it. The guy picks it off.
Like that would be Mr. Taylor Britt, if I remember correctly. Yes. Yeah,
I wasn't sure if we were allowed to say his name.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, but so that's one of those that's like, is he seeing the game the same way? Is that necessarily supposed to go to him? Is that the first read? I don't know, but it's one-on-one coverage. This guy's talking a lot of smack, and we're gonna go take our shot. And the receiver didn't necessarily see it the same way. And I think after the game, there were some other plays too that game the coach Reed talked about. Like he's not going and being aggressive on the football when he needs to be. And he's been a guy that's always kind of been this way. Last year Thornton way better on the deep ball than with Mahomes than X. So like, we, to your point, like we have seen this, that there are certain guys that see the game the same way. They can react more in the moment. They kind of meld more with what Pat's thinking. They can break off routes where they need to, find open space. And it just seems like Cyrus is already on that same page. And again, the ability to defeat man coverage and be a guy that Pat can trust, that is almost immeasurable if he's as good or, 80% as good as we kind of think he's trending.
I made a mistake today, Nate, and then feel free to carry on this thought. I made a mistake of watching Cyrus Allen's highlights from last year. I made a mistake because I'm all juiced up now.
Look,
like he's catching balls down the field. Like, ball tracking, like way deep. Like he was doing so much. It's college, but he was doing so much in that offense. I was like, okay, This is crazy. And then
and nothing seems out of character, right? There's plays in college, and I think we get sort of mesmerized by this, and it's understandable, but guys making incredible catches, and you're like, that won't translate against the best DBs on the planet. Like it just normally won't, unless you have like just truly one-of-one athletic gifts. I think a lot of what Cyrus showed at the college level was not only an understanding, but I mean, this is the funny thing that when I went through the research was like, oh, well, like who was Cincinnati's quarterback last year? And like, it was that guy, the Sorsby guy that was gamble. Okay, beyond the gambling issues, but they had only gotten to know each other for like a few months before last season started. So Cyrus transfers. Who's my quarterback? Who am I working with? And like they built a legitimate like connection over one season in college to where all of a sudden Sorsby's essentially one of the most sought after quarterbacks staying in college. And Cyrus Allen takes all of that information and says, okay, if I can do this with this level of quarterback, now you give me Mahomes, all of a sudden I can start to envision what exactly he wants, being attentive. He's so quick in and out of breaks. I think that's still what surprises Noel Williams at times. I think Noel says, oh, well, this doesn't look like anybody else that I'm going up against at practice. How is he behind me again? You know, he kind of has those, you can tell from the body language, he kind of has those moments of like, how did he just do that? And I don't know if you saw this clip, Cole, but it's in the All 22. If you're a maniac like me and Mitch are, I remember seeing it live Saturday in the press box, and it made me the most giddy. The play's pretty much dead on arrival. They're on the plus side of the field. Garrett Nussmeier is like, crap, nobody's open. And before he can basically say, crap, nobody's open, Cyrus is already breaking off his route and shading to, I believe, from my vantage point, from like his left to his right, sees the opening in like the Rams sort of, you know, shallow zone coverage. And I'm like, you would only do that because you've been doing this with Pat so much. The difference is ball's not going to be there on time the same way it's going to be with Patrick. So in my mind, I'm like, well, if Patrick was out there, to Mitch's point, oh my goodness, he's starting to see it like Patrick would see it. And this is the first preseason game, right? This isn't like week 6 or 7 in the regular season. So I'm giddy about the fact that he is such a sure-handed receiver, and he's already starting to learn like that advanced part of the game of like seeing it the way the quarterback sees it when, I'm stuck. I'm in between two defenders. What is the pass concept? Oh, there should be space that way. And oh, look, there's space. And by the way, I'm wide open. Like I'm open, you know. Nussmeier didn't throw the ball probably the way he wanted to, and so it got knocked down. But it was probably the best highlight he had of the entire game, even though he didn't have a catch.
I was going to ask you if it was that specific play, because as you were saying it, it was when it ended up getting knocked down, but I didn't know if Nuss just needed to put a little bit more air over the top of it and kind of sail it over. But if so, I mean, that's a touchdown, and Chiefs Kingdom is obviously losing their mind. So there was several flashes that I really liked. We got a lot more to talk about tonight in today's episode, but a housekeeping note real quick for everybody. I see your super chats. I've seen some people say, are these guys live? They were asking that last week. We are live, I promise. But we are going to be doing something a little special, I think, and we're going to have a Friday episode pre-recorded, but we're going to be answering all super chats and all questions that are sent in either on this live stream or in the comments down below via like a little super chat. It'll just be a once a week Q&A with me, Nate, and Mitch. If Nate ever can't make it, it'll be me and Mitch. But yeah, so any of these super chats, we'll try to address a couple of them at the end of this stream, but we'll also do a dedicated Friday like Q&A episode. And we're kind of excited to get some extra content coming out for you guys, because there'll just be questions that we're not able to get to or things we didn't talk about. Maybe we talk about a subject that you're like, hey, I wanted to follow up on that, but you guys moved on. So yeah, feel free to send in your questions. And as always, appreciate you. There's never an obligation to send in a super chat, but if you want to, always appreciate the support. And then before we get to more offensive takeaways. We got a bunch of injuries from practice today, too. I do want to shout out the season-long partner of the channel, Prize Picks, a huge reason why we're able to do what we do. This is America's #1 sports picks app, available in most states: Kansas, Missouri, California, Texas, Florida. The list goes on. You can do picks for individual games or season long. So I know there's some individual game performances on screen here, but I did one that was kind of fun recently. Travis Kelce has had 1 rushing yard in back-to-back years, and his line was half of a yard. I'm like, I'm sick, dude. I hit more on 1 rushing yard for Travis Kelce. Kenneth Walker. Another one I did was like Kenneth Walker, 1,250 or maybe it was 1,300 yards from scrimmage. I felt good about that, rushing and receiving. Then, these are not what's on screen. These are some more Broncos picks, but I've been having fun before the season starts, doing some season-long projections. Travis Kelce as well at like 700-ish yards. Felt pretty good to me too. But obviously, you guys can make your own picks. You can do individual games. So I am very sick. I apologize in advance. I had money on the Rams winning just to keep the Chiefs' preseason losing streak alive. So I did do that. If you're placing stuff, I know. I don't mind it because I shared it on social, so like people saw that I was doing it anyway. But hey, you can. If you're a new user, you could join in the fun by playing your first $5 to get $150 in lineups. If you win, just use code HMA when you sign up. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 plus lineup. Link is in the description down below. And obviously, I will say this, never spend what you can't afford to lose. That's why I put like $10 down on the Rams winning and 120. So it's like, I think the Rams probably win, but I was hoping to reverse the curse partially, but the curse did not get reversed, and the Chiefs have now lost 7 in a row in the preseason.
You have to for Saturday's game against Tampa. You have to bet for them to win so that you're hanging on. Obviously I have to watch the whole game to break it all down. But look, you're going to be rooting for Chris Oladokun in the fourth quarter, and we need it, Chris. For Cole's bank account, we need you to get it in the end zone. Now, it wasn't Chris's fault on Saturday. He threw a gorgeous pass, and I think it was Amari Evans who dropped it. It was just such it was Amari Evans who dropped it, and I was like, oh, like we got a 2-minute drive, man. So if you want to find a way to make the fourth quarter interesting, Prize Picks.
It's sick with preseason, man. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I will say the best throw of the game, in my opinion, was Nussmeier's 60-yard bomb into the numbers of Jason Brownlee. Into the numbers. Let's keep going offensive takeaways. I mean, there's O-line stuff. Mitch, I don't know if you want to weigh in on some stuff you saw on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty status quo-y from the O-line. I mean, the first unit didn't have a ton of reps.
Like 6
everyone
snaps or
thinks
something.
I hate Josh Simmons because I pointed out the snatch that I warned about last week, and then it happened in the game, and I showed video evidence, and now I'm a hater. But Benson looked good, but again, he barely had any reps. Jalen looked good in a couple, pass pro reps. Running back wise, I mean, we can get into it, but everyone's excited. And again, I think that's something call back to us talking last week. What position usually flashes the most, has the most ability to kind of slide up and down the depth chart? And it's running back, because you can't see the finish, the physicality, the breaking tackles in practice the way you can in a game. And so was it 10 official broken tackles? Which I think is like 3 less than the running backs had last year as a whole, or some crazy stat.
Yeah, it's a crazy stat. Yeah.
And one game.
That's real.
Wild.
Again, not Ram starters, not Myles Garrett trying to drag him down. But
yeah,
it's legit. You're still breaking tackles of guys who are either going to make NFL rosters or on the fringe. And I thought the running looked pretty good. The angles, there's some weird stuff in the run game still that I didn't necessarily love, but the touchdown that gets called back, I mean, makes a decisive cut, puts his foot in the ground, runs through contact, gets in the end zone. Pretty terrible holding call.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you agree with that holding call? Because on every angle I looked, I was like, well, what is? I think it was on Hunter Norzad, who was the center at the time. And I was saying, well, what is he supposed to do? Like, just like he's blocking him. Like he's inside. I know. I mean, he's inside the frame.
He's in the frame. Redirected his body. Like the guy maybe gets outside a little bit, and there's a little bit of like a jersey, grasping the side of the jersey, but usually the guy has to like be disengaging, falling to the ground, going for the tackle for that to be a penalty. That's one that like is basically a point of contact penalty. He got called on that because the running back was right next to him, and there was a little bit of a grasp, and that's what the ref sees, and that's what they call. If that was done by any of the other linemen at any other point on that play, it doesn't get called because it's not really at the point of contact. So that was unfortunate. Didn't agree with that call, but again, I thought a nice rep from all the guys up front. Really nice rep from Johnson there, and being able to run it the way he did. Again, I pointed out online still some kind of funky stuff with run game angles and kind of ironing that stuff out. I'm curious to see how much stuff EB brings with him from Ben Johnson and like what kind of looks different, especially with the under center. There's a run that he basically gets stuffed in the hole. I think center, right guard, right tackle are running a way too wide angle on an inside zone departure. And so when he takes his footwork, there's a linebacker that the O-line basically can't block because the angles are all wrong. So there's stuff like that like sometimes isn't on him. I'd be curious what EB is saying on that play, if he's telling him he's got to stretch it and chase the front side tackle or not. But all in all, I mean, again, as good as a debut as you can see, and I know the depth chart they released is basically useless because no one changed. But in terms of like reps on the field of practice, like has that changed at all, Nate?
Yes, I think it has. I still think I don't know if it's just like the coaching staff is comfortable with Amari DeMarcado just being like, hey, he's a veteran. We expect him to be our third down running back. If Kenneth Walker needs a break, maybe a nice little change of pace, but they are still feeding quite a bit into Emmett Johnson. So when Kenneth Walker has his 4 or 5 reps with team periods, usually it has either been Emmett Johnson mostly, and then sometimes they put in Bashar Smith again just to see him with the first team offensive line versus the second team offensive line alongside Fields. Today they did do a little bit more passing to DeMarcado, so I wonder if that is something that they're, just little sprinkles along the way to get him prepared for maybe Saturday's game against the Buccaneers, because he might play more. And I would wonder if he would play more with like Justin Fields against the Buccaneers. And if that's the case, then maybe you don't play him a ton against Seattle in the preseason finale so that you can play more of the young guys to get them one last little dress rehearsal before the season. But in terms of like reps, they clearly like what they saw in Johnson, and they're going to keep sort of feeding and developing that. I think that was one thing that Eric Bieniemy was trying to get across today in his news conference was we're still in the developmental process, right? I know everybody's like, woo, we got a game, finally, like something to watch, something to like look at and analyze. But he's like, we're still technically in training camp. We still have to develop, the young guys, which I think is obviously Johnson and Brashard Smith. And so they're still trying to give those guys the majority of reps in a way that I think, as you probably know, Mitch, when you get to the regular season, that's going to swing in the other way where it's like, okay, most of these reps are going to go to the starters. And, you might get an occasional little bit here and there for whoever the regular season opponent is. Obviously, for week 1, it'll be the Broncos.
Yeah, when we signed McKinnon, like, did he get this little training camp reps from the jump, or was it like after a season of kind of proving himself? Because it seems weird to like
it. Yeah, it's a great point, because I think they were using McKinnon more often as like, and again, we have to think about this too. This is different because Patrick's not coming off a major injury. And so the first year McKinnon, it was a lot of him like, okay, understanding what does Pat want? What are we going to do in this blitz period? Okay, where am I at in terms of landmarks for screens or as a pass catcher? I think in year 2, it was pretty evident that like McKinnon was just like, I'm good, I'm fine. I think at that point, that was reasonable. This is a little bit more of a departure from that with DeMarcado. But the thing that gives me the best hope for him is every time they do the one-on-ones in terms of pass blocking, he's clearly the best guy who can do the job. So if you feel like, hey, you've played in the NFL, we've seen you run with the football, we haven't seen that from Emmett Johnson or maybe this new coaching staff with Bieniemy and DeMarco Murray as the running back coach, maybe we want to see that from, Brashard Smith a little bit more. I understand that. Very interested to see how they handle DeMarcado in this second game, because the second preseason game is usually where you want most of your veterans to feel like, okay, they got what they needed, and then we can move on and start, game planning for that first opponent. If DeMarcado doesn't play much in the second preseason game, then I guess I would be somewhat concerned because I think this roster does need 4 running backs. And unless they ask the Buccaneers to blitz on every other down and Emmett Johnson just absolutely, stonewalls everybody, then I guess my tune would change. But I don't feel like DeMarcado's in any danger.
I think just what's throwing everybody off is him coming out for the first time in the fourth quarter. That's probably the weirdest thing, because like Kenneth Walker was out there for 1 snap. I have no idea. And then you would think one. then it's DeMarcado, like you would think he comes in, even if it's just for a few, but then you give all the reps to Emmett Johnson as a rookie and Brashard Smith, who is still, he recently converted from wide receiver to running back last year in college, and he's still working at just the position in general and kind of growing in that. So it makes sense that they're getting the most reps. It just kind of threw me off that you didn't see DeMarcado at all on offense until the fourth quarter. That was kind of weird.
I can't explain it. And it was one of those things where it might be something that I want to ask Andy Reid about on Thursday, because Andy will once again tell us who's playing, who isn't playing. That'll most likely be Patrick Mahomes on play against the Buccaneers. But it might be something to ask him Thursday, like, hey, is this just we want to see the young guys, or do you actually feel like you need to see more from DeMarcado based on what you've seen so far at training camp, which to my, uneducated eyes doesn't seem like anything, crazy. It's not like he's dropping passes or fumbling or anything of that nature.
Here's a question, because I feel like we could keep talking about the running back room, but I feel like we need to wait and see until this next game, and then kind of we could form a bit more of a stronger opinion there, unless you guys have more thoughts on it. But the O-line, you can't read into anything today because everybody's banged up, but was it weird to any of you guys, to see after all this time, Trey Smith out, you had Benson at right guard, Moore at right tackle, but then they flip-flopped yesterday, and Andy Reid kind of said, well, they could both benefit from the reps at either. I'm like, when is the last time we've seen, Trey Smith working at tackle and then Josh Simmons working at guard? I think I'm just a little confused by that, but that's why I want to ask. I've been waiting for this one to ask Mitch, any of you guys, is there anything to that, or is it just what do you take from that, Mitch, when you see them switch like that? Because today's kind of irrelevant, I think, because of everybody banged up, but feel free to weigh in with whatever.
Well, I think it's still trying to figure out what guys' best spots are. They kind of gave Benson the week there with Trey out, and then is it going to end up being right tackle? Are they still kind of waiting for Jalen to just take the job? I mean, I don't really understand what they're looking for, how it works. They tend to flip-flop guys kind of quite a bit if you're not like the established starter. So both those guys technically being in a competition, also in the throes of who's the backup if Josh goes down, who's the backup right guard, who's the backup left guard, trying to figure out all that stuff. I think there is some benefit to still seeing how's Jalen a right guard, because that was my thing early on. I was surprised they weren't flip-flopping each day. I was surprised Benson was just the right guard for the whole week. I thought they would flip-flop, thinking Benson maybe is more right tackle-y, and Jalen could also go inside and be pretty effective. So, yeah, I don't know what to think of it, to be totally honest.
Sure.
It makes sense for what I expected last week that they would, kind of trade that off, because when Trey goes down during the season, I think you do want to figure out who's the better guard. If Jalen, say, wins the job at right tackle, but also would be a better right guard, were Trey to go down or, not be able to play, would that be valuable information instead of putting a rookie in at a position that maybe you don't think he's going to excel at or be as good at right away? You put him at right tackle, move Jalen into right guard. So, yeah, it's always interesting to see. And there's also just benefit to kind of just playing next to other guys and feeling that out. And maybe he meshes better with Creed than the other guy, or maybe they're better with double teams, and you just don't know that. You can kind of evaluate the one-on-ones, or can he block, a 3-tech body type versus a DN body type? But once you get out there, how does that guy fit in with the unit? How do the double teams look? Is he smart enough to take the right angles to figure all those things out? Blitzes, pass sets, is he holding space, passing stuff off on the inside? That's all the stuff you really just have to see. So I think it makes sense to do that. I just was surprised that they weren't flipping a little bit last week.
Andy did say basically what you guys said last week, of kind of no matter where Benson's playing right now, it's pretty paramount if you're trying to see what you have in him that he goes up against the best competition possible. So Andy Reid did say, regardless of where these guys are playing, like we want Benson to go against the best and just to get these reps under his belt. And so I did find that pretty valuable. Nate, if you have something else to weigh in on, feel free. But if not, I'm going to shift to injury updates here.
Todd Bowles, I need Ruben Bain against Khalil Benson for 10 straight snaps. That's all we need. Like, let's stop fooling around. Let's see what it is. By the way, I think the Buccaneers, at least from what I can tell from reading their reports, it seems like the starters are going to play. So, like, let's hope that be the case. You know, I would like Todd Bowles to blitz to see where Emmett Johnson is on the pass protection role of it all. And it would be nice to see Khalil Benson go up against, I don't know, somebody, right? As Mitch said, hey, let's be on the same peer level. You know, highly touted, you know, rookie and Ruben Bain. I don't know. I think he usually now they played each other in the national championship game. A lot of people told me Ruben Bain was awesome and that Khalil Benson was in. But hey, Indiana won. So, you know, Fernando Mendoza lived to see that he'd be the first pick in the NFL draft. So it wasn't a complete catastrophe. But I would love to see that matchup a little bit. It seems to me like, hey, if Trey's out, all right, let's see him at guard. We can sort of, I know this is like tongue in cheek. We can game plan for him all at guard this week. And then next week we'll flip roles and he'll be right tackle. And we can game plan for all of his responsibilities at right tackle against the Buccaneers. I mean, I guess I'm mostly, you know, that's my hypothesis, I guess, right now.
Sure.
With Josh Simmons having a back injury, which is why he didn't practice today, that'll be something to monitor because immediately, and I understand this, Jalen Moore goes from right guard to left tackle. That would happen in a game based on the depth chart and what we understood and what we saw last season. I think Mike Caliendo, correct me if I'm wrong, Cole, Mike Caliendo got the call up today at right guard. I know fans are pretty like lukewarm at best at Mike Caliendo. I would like to remind people that like Mike Caliendo has played in the NFL and like has done it before. I'm not saying he might get better, but like, you know, he is a NFL player. And I think their best backup center is Hunter Norzad. So in a weird way, I think the top 9 of the depth chart is sort of materialized, even though that's not the way we would have expected when training camp began with how the preseason snaps were allocated and Benson not really playing a ton. So I want to see plenty from Benson this week. And hopefully, again, to Mitch's point, we have a better idea of like, okay, maybe he can hold up at tackle, or is he destined to be like tackle if there's an emergency, but more let's maybe start to see where he is from a developmental standpoint as a guard throughout the course of the season.
They're definitely testing the waters, it seems, more than they have been with some of these guys in previous years. I feel like these injuries, we could get to them. I'm just going to read them off. Give me an hour.
So we have time.
I'm kidding. We have Jimmy Holiday with the quad that happened before preseason game. Jeff Weimer hamstring. I think it happened in the game. Andy Reid didn't report it after, but he hadn't practiced since the game, so that's a hamstring. You then have Jason Chu-Godric. He sprained his ankle in the game. Matt Waletzko banged his knee, I think yesterday. Jack Cochran, he's been dealing with a knee for a little while now. When did that happen? Was that in the game? That wasn't in the game.
No, that was before the game. So they played Saturday.
So he didn't play.
So that was like Thursday, I think, was Jack Cochran's like knee injury where it just sort of popped up and he goes, "Oh, I don't feel great," which is again why we saw Jeffrey Bassa more than maybe we would have otherwise on Saturday.
The other ones, I mean, Omar Norman-Lott's still on the pup, but the kind of newish ones to talk through, yeah, you mentioned it. Josh Simmons today with the back. I saw Matt Derrick and Matt Verderam of Sports Illustrated both basically per sources, this isn't believed to be serious kind of a situation with Josh's back, so that's good. I'm sure Mitch saw the word back and was like, oh boy, because you've lived through some of your own stuff. But then the two that also got banged up today, which are probably pretty noteworthy to process through, is Tyquan Thornton with the hamstring, Ashton Gelati with the foot. It was like the back of the foot, his heel, he was grabbing at it.
Yeah, it looks like his feet got tangled up with Jared Wiley, and he started like identifying immediately that like something doesn't feel right with the back of his foot. So I don't know if
But it
that's
was like
heel.
low on the heel, almost like the foot got like jammed and like put a lot of pressure on like a heel joint or something. Because
Yeah.
it wasn't Achilles. It wasn't like what you normally think of when a guy's reaching back there. And he seemed more okay than not okay. But it was a very odd part of the ankle to kind of be holding at like right after just, kind of a run of the mill tangle.
And when it comes to Tyquan Thornton, all of a sudden, and this is like how wild it is to try to monitor 91 guys at a practice, especially when we get to certain periods where like everybody's somewhat separated. So like the linemen are over here, linebackers are doing their thing over here. You got the DBs and the safety, or DBs and the receivers over on this side, and all of a sudden you're watching Tyquan Thornton like run a pretty nice deep route. And you're like, okay, like that's him against man-sorted lane. That's pretty much good on good. All right, cool. We're going to transition from that to like 7-on-7. And then from that, Mitch knows this, we're going to go right into like 11-on-11 team period. And all of a sudden during the team period, I look up and I say, oh, Tyquan must have just like sort of self-reported his hamstring, because all of a sudden he's in the tent and like no one could tell. It wasn't like, okay, he pulled up a little, you could tell, oh, pulled up a little hammy after running a certain route. There was nothing of that nature. So my hope is this isn't that bad to where like, fans or anybody in the media couldn't really see it. And then all of a sudden I think from a precautionary standpoint, it's just going up in the cart and going right up to I'm assuming, get a further evaluation inside. But those are one of the tricky ones where you're like, wait, didn't I just see him? And now he's in a cart and now he's leaving? Like what happened? But, the Chiefs said it's a strained hamstring, and who knows? It might be similar to what Ashton Gelati went through, and that was about a week of just like letting it just heal and rest naturally. But puts him into question if he's going to be available for Saturday's game against the Buccaneers.
There's a couple. I'll pass it back to you in a second here, Mitch. But there was a few guys that returned. So you had Tranquil, Chamari Connors, Sneed. They had pads on, were limited.
Yep.
That's a good sign, I think. I mean, Sneed was missing for a little while there. So it's cool that he was back out there in some capacity. I know you're going to have to load manage that knee probably all year. But Mansour Delane, I guess, unless, Mitch, you had something else to weigh in on based on what we just said, I guess the next topic from here will transition to Mansour Delane. Is how has he looked with 2 practices now under his belt, no yellow non-contact jersey, and I think being able to do everything.
Pretty good.
So if the one-on-ones that are floating around online are any evidence, looks pretty good.
He got there. It's so funny, like how quickly like players can know who they're going against and sort of pick up traits. And again, like Mitch was saying earlier, I practice against the same guy now. I kind of have a really good idea of who he is. It took Delane 2 days to be like, oh, I've seen that move from Rashee Rice, and nope. Not gonna get any separation on this one, So it's like, hey, I got beat on Monday. Not gonna get beat tomorrow on that similar move, that similar pattern. Looks pretty good.
Well, I would say with the exciting thing, and I think maybe the reason you move on from McDuffie, you target him, trade up to get him, similar to how we're excited about Cyrus Allen being a man coverage beater. I think Delane could be kind of the man coverage lockdown guy. Obviously, Noel tends to be a little bit better in man coverage as well. A little bit more scheme versatility. Like you can still run cover 2, you can still do your blitz stuff, but now you can blitz more guys and trust the DBs in coverage and not have to worry quite as much. Like, oh well, we can only run fire zones. We have to drop defensive ends or do other things to protect the back end when guys are better in a zone scheme. So if you have 2 guys that are kind of lockdowny, we're not going to make any proclamations after 2 practices, let alone going against our banged up unit. But I think that we can start to see kind of what that vision was, what the idea was. Just plays. I mean, even in cover 2, I mean, those corners are pressing. There's man elements to it. It's not just like, kind of drop back in the zone and play things soft. So, yeah, I think to Nate's point, I mean, so far look good. And it's exciting to think about everything you can cook up when you have as much trust in 2 guys to be in man coverage as you do guys playing zone.
The one detail, and I don't know if we're going to get to it because, these last 2 practices were, I would think, the most intense of the week. Both padded practices, both 2 hours or longer. They haven't let Xavier Worthy do everything yet. In terms of like 11 on 11, he has participated in some 7-on-7, but they're sort of, again, they're keeping his reps sort of to a certain degree right now, or withholding it, I should say. The one guy that gave, before his shoulder injury, the one guy that consistently gave Mansour Delane issues was Xavier Worthy. So whether it's after, training camp is officially over on Thursday, we come back from Tampa Bay, when the team's back at the training facility, I would love to see, like, okay, this guy's fully cleared. No yellow jersey for Delane. This guy's fully cleared. He can do everything. He can run all the routes now. His own shoulder injury, interestingly enough, is more than okay to go. Because I think one of the things that Mansour really understood in the OTA periods was that, like, oh man, I could be just a smidge off. Oh, but that guy's throwing the football. So like, that ain't college. It's like, nope, that guy is really quick and really fast. And if Patrick puts it right on him, if you're late, you're too late. I would love to see their matchups, because it's clear that, like, he's got a pretty nice battle. He's had pretty nice battles these last 2 days with Tyquan Thornton before the hamstring injury. But I do want to see him against the guy that gave him the most issues in the OTAs and in the Schwartz practices, and that was Xavier.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because it was good to see. I think it might have been Pete Sweeney mentioned that there was a little bit of 11 on 11 work for Worthy today. So he's at least trending in an upward direction. Yes. Two more questions, I guess. Is Rice starting to look a little bit better? And then what day should we have money on the Chiefs bringing back Juju Smith-Schuster upon his release?
All right, let's get to the real question first. Mitch, I don't know, man. I go back and forth. Some days I'm like, hey, that looks like Rashee Rice. And then other days I'm like, all right, that looks like kind of like, again, I don't know if it's just, again, I don't know. I'm not inside his body. We've only talked to him once. Again, I do know Eric Bieniemy is beating the you-know-what out of him. For a lack of effort at times, for not finishing reps, for not really sprinting. It's like, okay, if I want to give you the benefit of the doubt, would I also want to go like full speed on a knee that I had surgically repaired in May on like August 18th, coach? So it's hard to judge that versus like, okay, well, Cyrus Allen's just routing guys up and running free because he's a rookie and, he doesn't know any better. I want to give the benefit that, like, do you really want to, like, show off full speed, like full cuts right now when you're still weeks away from the season? My answer would, we're all human, probably not, but that doesn't mean Eric Bieniemy won't be upset that you don't even attempt to break a tackle, right? You catch the ball and you just kind of like throttle down, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, that was a big issue with him last year when the play started to slip, was the finishing, kind of doing stuff when he wasn't expecting the ball, being as physical and as precise in the route running. So as everybody knows, EB is the accountability man, and you're not going to get away with that. My gut says that he wouldn't be out there with the volume that he's practicing if they didn't trust that this wasn't the right path, or that, like, this wasn't a re-aggravation risk. Like, your knee is healthy, and running hard and making cuts and getting in and out of breaks is not going to hurt your knee anymore. It's going to strengthen it. It's going to give you confidence, all that stuff. So to me, the idea is, like, if he's out there, if they're trusting, because he's still going to be relied on in a very valuable role for the team.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
They're, as much as you want to talk about all the offseason stuff, all that, like, they're not going to put that at risk to, like, spite him, or, hey, you're just going to be fine, the knee's going to be fine. Like, they wouldn't do that. We've seen, actually, from my opinion, them being much more conservative with guys being injured and easing them back in. And was L'Jarius Sneed like the first guy to actually get like vet rest days in a training
Pretty
camp?
much.
Like, basically.
Pretty much.
I know. So it does seem like they're a little bit more conservative. So the fact that Rashee's out there tells me not necessarily a risk to make it worse. We're going to push it. We're going to gain strength, stamina, all those things. You're going to start trusting it. to the does it look better? I mean, a little bit, but it still looks not like himself. So when does that start coming around? I'm not sure. Maybe it just is like starting to trust it and being able to work through it. Got like 3.5 weeks now to the first game, so hopefully starts coming back sooner than later.
Juju Smith-Schuster is set to be released by
Thursday.
the Giants because they're signing Najee Harris to a 1-year deal.
Thursday.
Do you think it's Thursday? He's a Kansas City Chief?
No, I mean, this is the thing with Emmanuel is if they do re-sign him, what does the contract look like? Is he a week 1 guy that's going to guarantee the salary for the whole year? Or is it like a be with us through camp, we'll release you, wink, wink, don't sign anywhere else, and we'll sign you back in week 2? Do you need a guy like Juju in the preseason? No, not necessarily, but also a guy like that you don't really want sitting for 3 weeks and not practicing and not getting the stamina up. So if you do think he could be part of the plans, whether that's week 1, which guarantees the veteran salary for those that don't necessarily know what I'm talking about, a guy like him, even if he's on a veteran minimum contract with no guarantees, if he's on the roster the Saturday of week 1, that contract guarantees. So teams will often kind of cut guys in those roles that they're not sure they're going to have around all year, sign him back in week 2, and then basically it's unguaranteed week-to-week contract the rest of the year. Could those 2 guys kind of be candidates for that? I would say yes, possibly. But yeah, Thursday is being facetious. Maybe next week. I don't know. I mean, especially if guys keep going down.
Yeah, I think that's such a fascinating development because I don't know if this was exactly what they were trying to do last year with Mike Pennell, but at least that would be the most reasonable thought process. And then I think Mike Pennell was sort of offended by that decision and said, no. Nah, man, I've done too much for you guys. I've given too much. I was here all training camp. He played the preseason, and they said, well, it's again, like I don't know the entire ins and outs of why they decided not to put Mike Pennell in the initial 53. Mitch's scenario would make some sense, especially if you don't think the guy's, hey, I know he was trending towards
especially, I mean, we don't have to relitigate that, but to kind of choose Nadi over him, right?
Crazy.
That was the biggest shock.
Yeah. But again, they put themselves in their own box because they traded to acquire Nadi, so you had to retain him, and then they make the decision to be like, well, what if we cut you and bring you back? And again, sometimes feelings get hurt, and you can be offended by that. And again, once you cut a guy, like it's his prerogative to do what he wants to do moving forward. He eventually came back because Chris Jones was like, please. And at that point, I think Mike Pennell had gotten wind of, playing for the Bengals. I'm not cut out for this anymore. Nah, I would like to go back to something more familiar. And so they thankfully made up. But no, it's a great point. And if I'm Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not thrilled that I was released for Najee Harris, but I don't have to be in St. Joe next week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a call away next week, guys.
I also read part of the reason why he could have been cut. He was dealing with like some kind of like L'Jarius Sneed stuff with the knee. They were having to load manage the knee. There was swelling, some stiffness in the knee as well. But I think that's been a thing for a while anyway.
With Cole, you're gonna have to manage his knee for the rest of however long he's in the NFL. And if
you're talking Sneed or you're talking Juju, or you're talking both?
Both. And if the Giants weren't willing to make that investment, that's on them. Because the Patriots told you that. The Chiefs were very clear. So, like, I guess, I don't know. I mean, now it sounds like a car, but it's like the amount of maintenance that was going to be required for him is real. It's relative. Like, this is a violent game. Like, he needs plenty of time and treatment on his knee. And if you're not willing to make that investment, then I don't know what you were signing up for if you're the Giants. But to each his own.
It certainly would make sense, especially with some of these injuries piling up. But my hope is, if that happened, like I'm kind of rooting for Andrew Armstrong at this point right now. I'm just like, if that's going to take Andrew Armstrong's spot on the 53, I would be pretty disappointed. Again, the coaching staff will know what they have in these guys more than I will, obviously. times 80. But Andrew Armstrong's starting to flash, and I love the aggressiveness of his blocks. Part of me was wondering if he could be playing some of that Juju role this year if he's able to get on the 53. So that's a name, and I was going to ask you guys.
Also, just real quick,
yeah,
you are getting special teams help on everyone's favorite special teams for receivers, but if you have Juju, like then you have Juju, Rasheed, Xavier,
None
Thornton,
of those guys are doing special
and
teams.
potentially Cyrus. You got 5 guys that aren't gonna be playing special teams. That's
Right.
I don't know how logical that is. So that is an element too with Juju, that it might be certain weeks guys are down, you bring him in for spells, but to have him be on the roster week to week and then basically render your entire receiver room with no special teams, I'm not sure that's so feasible.
I agree.
That's what I was going to ask. Just one player you guys are going to maybe try to keep eyes on. It could be a player you've already mentioned, or it could be an under the radar guy. I don't know how under the radar it is, but I'll be keeping an eye on Andrew Armstrong. I like what he's been doing and putting together, and just even Jesse Newell early on was like, hey, he's standing out, and
He is.
so I'm kind of rooting for him right now.
Yeah. My guy would be Jake Brenningstool. There's a weird scenario we're about to enter where I think the Chiefs might have to keep 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 7 receivers, and 4 tight ends.
You're going to have to sacrifice on defense.
Correct.
We're gonna go like puncherless or something. No, I would say
Mahomes backup punter. Don't do it.
I would say I want to see the young D linemen, R. Mason Thomas, Peter Woods, especially if the Buccaneers starters are playing. It sounds like Baker might play, which would tell you there.
Yep.
The 1 line is going to play. Tristan Wirfs, meet R. Mason Thomas. Might get a little rough for the young buck in there. But that's the kind of matchup we're going to want to see. Can the speed hold up? Can the counter moves? Can he dip? What's the strength going to be like? And then the Bucs are pretty legit on the inside too historically, and so what's Peter Woods going to look like, and that would be my go-to.
Back on the Brenningstool note, that Emmett Johnson run right before his touchdown run that got called back, that was a great block by Brenningstool to help set up the edge there for Emmett Johnson when there was not really anywhere to go. So I love that rep from Brenningstool, and he caught a few passes too. Very intrigued to see how that kind of shakes out. But I feel like we could keep going, but we're running out of time. So that's why we're doing the Friday episode, guys. So I see the super chats. I see all the dono bombs. I wanted to say that I appreciate you guys throwing them up on screen. We'll kind of answer them in Friday's video. But yeah, this Matt Vix does not want Juju to come back. I guess we could end it on this if you want to, Mitch. This question from Tim. Ooh. Thanks for the 20 bomb, man. He's saying if it's not too personal to share, could you let us know what the note is from Mahomes on the back in your backdrop right there? Is that too personal to share?
My neck mobility is not the greatest. So maybe in future episodes. It is kind of a personal note.
That's fine.
I'll have to reread it and see. Tune in next week and then the week after. And the week after, and, eventually.
What a tease.
There you go.
Get to that.
You're going to have people screenshotting, zooming in, and trying to run it through
I thought
AI.
about that. I didn't think that they could do that. Thanks for putting that out in the ether. And,
sorry, man.
No, it's a nice note. It's nothing I'm embarrassed about. I wouldn't have it up there if I was too worried about it. But let me reread it and then we'll figure it out.
Well, yeah, thanks for all the dono bombs, guys. Dexter. Yeah, we'll answer all of these. I see the super chats from everybody. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Make sure to like, sub, all that fun stuff. Check us out on the audio platforms and give us some feedback on how you're liking the show through 3 episodes. I knew it would take some time, not to be able to talk Chiefs, but just to kind of mesh with everybody. And I feel like it's been going really well. There was a moment earlier that me and Mitch almost broke character, and you guys can maybe go catch that one later. But do you guys have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think it's been great, and similar. I appreciate everybody with the super chats, and just look forward to answering questions because I think this team's gonna provide a lot of questions because I feel like this could go really good or really bad. So this team has a lot of
fan questions, not Chiefs team questions.
I know, but I think a lot of the questions are going to be like, reassure me
about the
team,
or
is it all falling down? And I'm like, kind of could go either way, but I don't know, So we'll do the best we can.
No, I'm this is awesome. Thank you guys for all the support. I'm looking forward to another game. A little bit more action probably for the starters and the guys we're going to see the most this year. And especially if the Bucks are playing their guys, should be some really, really good one-on-one individual matchups. And that's always kind of the most fun thing for me to see.
Well, thanks again, everybody. Cole, Nate, Mitch with the Chiefs Collective, episode 3. See y'all next time.